Hi, this is Annie Owens with My Dimensional Life. We come together each week and I tell you more stories of my life about the paranormal, the ET experiences, all the spiritual things that have happened to me to grow and make me believe the way I do. Once again, as I say every time, I'm just telling my stories. You can choose to believe it, not believe it. It's up to you. And I ask you to seek and try to find your answers, listen to inside yourself, pray, meditate, whatever you need to do to find your answers of your truth in your life. I'm telling my truth of the things that have happened to me. This week I'd like to get started, but before I do, please do like and subscribe to the channel so I can continue to make videos. Share it, please, also to others that might be interested in this. Let's see if we can get this to grow, because I know as we get this to grow, we're going to get more and more people like myself coming out that have had these experiences. So let's get it going. Let's start a movement here and get more people to be able to come out, because for so long we pretty much have been shunned or told that none of this is happening. It's all in our head. We're crazy. And so I want to come out. I want to be one of the first that are coming out about the things that have happened and the fact that I've been abducted my whole life and I still deal with them on a regular basis. So let's get started right now. We're going to go back in stories to when I first started getting taken again as an adult. And it happened in Montana. My husband and I, it took us forever to be able to have kids, and we thought, you know what, since we don't have any kids, we're going to go ahead and have our adventures young. So we actually were at a place in Montana, and we lived in a tent while we were building a cabin up in the mountains. And this tent was smaller because it was really cold in Montana, so it was probably like I think a 3-4 man tent, but it was literally set up to where we put a blanket on top. It was insulated. It was insulated on the bottom part of it. But in order to get out of this tent, I would literally have to climb over my husband if I was to get out in the middle of the night. So I was on the inner side of the tent, and his body laid across the door. And he was a very light sleeper. He was one to where if a deer walked by, you had heard a twig break, he would literally wake up. He was always and always has been an extremely light sleeper, to where noises just really just wake him up. And so one night we're in the tent and I was sleeping, and I had this compulsing, there was like a voice, and it was like saying, come out of the tent. And I remember being really scared. My nerves were up. I was like, what the heck is this? And it was like almost like being compelled. It was like, come out of the tent, come out now. And I'm like thinking to myself, if I get out of the tent for no reason and I try to climb over my husband, he's going to wake up. He's just literally going to wake up. But I was like, no, I don't want to. And that's the way I was feeling. I don't want to. And they said, come out of the tent. And it was stronger. It was like inside I'm feeling this, and it was like, oh, I don't want to. And I wasn't scared in the fact of being afraid that something was going to come grab me or anything like that. It was more of a feeling of compulsion. It was like, oh, I got to get out of this tent. So I unzipped the tent, and I was very, very cautious about it. I unzipped the tent and I went to climb out. And as I went to climb out, I literally fell on top of my husband. He didn't move. He didn't flinch. You would just think that he just altogether did not feel anything. He was so out and down asleep. It's almost like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was almost like he was totally dead to the world. He didn't move at all. And so I literally climbed out of the tent, and I don't remember too much after I went out of the tent. That's the part that was literally just taken from me. The next thing I know, it is probably about 5:30 in the morning. The sun was just starting to come up to where you can see outside. And I'm standing about 50 feet away from the tent. And I'm in a daze. And I'm standing there and I'm looking up, looking around, almost like you're like in a dream state. And I'm just standing there looking around. And next thing I hear is my husband inside the tent. He's waking up. And he realizes that I'm not near him. And now he's freaking out because he's a really light sleeper. He's all, Annie, where are you? Where are you? And he's literally trying to look for me. And the tent had gotten zipped back up. So I must have come out of the tent and then zipped it back down. He unzipped the tent and he's all, Annie, Annie. And I'm like, I'm out here. He unzipped the tent real fast and he says, what are you doing out there? And I said, I don't know. That was all I could tell him because I really did not know. I just knew I was standing out there and I was in a daze. It felt like a dream, and I'm just standing there. And he says, what are you doing outside? And how did you get out of the tent? There's no way you could have left without me feeling you move out of the tent. And I said, I don't know. I don't know. And it was cold that morning. There was like a light frost on the ground. I was barefoot outside. I was literally not dressed for the weather at all. And I'm just standing out there kind of in a daze. He goes, well, come back in here. Come on, hurry, let's get you warm. So at that particular time, we didn't know quite what had happened. We just knew that that was a very odd experience because I had no clue what had happened to me that night. And we just kind of wrote it off as one of those things that happen, not understanding why it happened, not exploring why it happened. And we just kind of let it go at that and just kind of went on in our regular lives and everything that we're doing. And then it wasn't until later on when I started getting into the QHHT, what I was telling you about, the hypnosis. And then I started realizing that, yes, I had been taken when I was younger. Yes, the experience at 12 years old was a real experience, even though I had no way to categorize it. And so you just kind of write it off and you just kind of put it off to the side. Um, and I went to my husband and I said to him, I said, later on, as I started getting deeper and deeper into QHHT, learning more about myself, I said, you realize in Montana, I was taken, right? And he says to me, yeah, when we started finding out that you had been taken, I did realize that, but I didn't want to bring that up because you were already having enough difficult time on your own. Sorry, bugs. Difficult time on your own dealing with your own situations that were taking place. And so with that, I had just kind of just let it go. But then I started noticing, after I had realized I had been taken, I started thinking back to all my different experiences. I had no reason or no way to categorize what had happened. Like, I would wake up in the morning and I would have bruises, and I'd have bruises on my arms, but it was bruises like somebody grabbed me from behind. And I would always tease my husband. I'm like, what did you do to me in the middle of the night? Because I would literally have bruises and you would see the fingers on my arm. And he goes, I don't know. What the heck did you do? Did you grab yourself in the middle of the night? We would just kind of make jokes out of it because I had no idea about this stuff. This is before we started realizing that this stuff has been taken. One morning, I remember waking up in bed and I had gotten out and my husband's like, what the heck is wrong with your feet? And I said, what are you talking about? He's all, don't you bathe? Don't you shower? And I'm a pretty clean person. I look down and there is dirt on the bottom of my feet. It is like really dirty. And it was just a feeling that I'd left out of my house at night. But other than that, I couldn't remember anything. And as you can tell, the background, I kind of live out in the country. So there was a spot actually out in my pasture. It's no longer there, thank goodness. But there was a spot that the grass and everything didn't quite grow right in that spot. It was, yeah. And I remember vaguely walking out to this pasture, but I didn't remember anything after that. And so once we started realizing what had been happening with me, that's when we started putting it together and going, wow, all these little experiences that have been happening your whole life that we had no way to categorize or know exactly what to say actually happened. We would turn it into jokes because it was easier to turn it into jokes than to freak out about something you have no control over. And that's what was happening with me. And that's when I started little by little learning that, yes, I had been taken. And little memories started coming back during this time. And the small grays that I had dealt with when I was 12 years old, the lady that was pearlescent white, and she was a different being. She wasn't a gray in the way that she looked because she was just so white, she glowed. But then I also started having little bits and pieces of memories of two different types of tall gray. One of the tall gray was a very smooth face, as I told you before, kind of has, to me, the higher cheekbones, very smooth, kind of Asian looking with larger eyes, that were just dark eyes. There was no whites in the eyes. And the other one was a tall gray, but it had very wrinkled. They're both about 7 foot tall, but one was very wrinkled. And I actually remembered a conversation, and it was so weird in the feeling that this gray that was more Asian looking, their personalities, as I told you, each one has different personalities. And this tall gray that was the Asian looking, the higher cheekbones, with him, he was kind of joking. He liked to joke. He was very kind of sarcastic in the way he said things, but they were very scientific also at the same time. And one of the jokes he was saying was he was literally talking about the other tall gray with the very wrinkly face. And he was joking with me, and he was like, you know, and of course it's all telepathic. He says, you know, they think they're so smart, just because they're always science, science, science. They just think they know everything and they're so smart. But there was a little bit of conflict between the two, and I remember looking at him and saying, you need to knock it off. I told him, I said, you need to knock it off because I'm asking you to work together. So what exactly that has to do with it, I don't know. That's just the memory that I brought back. That was only the little bits of the piece of memory that I brought back, but I know that I was more connected to my higher self when this was happening. It did not feel nefarious. It was for mankind. I knew that they were working together. And I want to bring out, and I feel impressed to do it, and so we're going to do it tonight. With a lot of these beings, um, they're kind of like humans in the fact that, yes, depending upon what species they are, their vibration tends to be higher. They tend to be more nicer to people. They tend to be kind, the loving. Um, they're a lot like humans in the fact that there's a lot of humans that are kind, loving, caring, compassionate. But then there's also a lot of humans that are not. So just because they go, oh, one species, this species, they're like this, it's not like that. There are groups of them, and they are different. So just like humans, they are different also. You can't just go, that would be like saying, oh, I met a human on Earth and they were really nice and I really liked hanging out with them. And then saying that all the humans are like that. That's not true. We know that. We're all different. And so there are some in these races that maybe generally, and as you get into the higher vibration, yes, they're higher like that. But when you're getting to the vibration that's just slightly higher than us, because that's what it felt like these grays were, where the vibration was just slightly higher than us, very much more advanced. But like the one that with the wrinkly face, he might have been compassionate, but you couldn't. Well, I did never feel the compassion like I did with the one with the higher cheekbones. He was a lot more compassionate. He was a lot more jokey. The one with the wrinkly face, he wasn't mean at all. And you would look at him. I need to get some pictures actually printed out of that type, and you would look at him and you think, oh man, this one's scary looking because all the little wrinkles in the face. But he was kind, but he was very scientific. That's how he was. And so it wasn't that I was scared of him. I wasn't scared of either one of them by this time. But, I've been dealing with them since I was like a little kid. So by the time I became an adult, I wasn't really afraid of them. You know what I mean? I've met mantis beings. We'll get into more stories of that. I've met so many different types, and I can feel the way that they think. So when you're with them, it's almost like there's a connection, or for me at least anyway, there was a connection to where I can understand how they're thinking, because everything is pure thought. It's not like here where we're not telepathic. Well, there are some that are telepathic. You hear the telepathy tapes and all, but you convey the feeling. It's not like you're just talking. There's a feeling that comes with it. So when they're telepathically talking to you, there is literally a feeling that comes with it. And I did want to do one more thing. I did ask him. I asked him, I said, people want to know, and this was a long time ago, but I said, I want to know why it is they're so interested in humankind, and why there's so many different species of aliens that are interested in humans. I asked them that. I said, tell me why that is. And they said, okay, we're going to try to explain it in the way that you would understand it. And I'm like, okay. Because I would always, if they would get into like trying to talk scientifically to me, I would always try to get into dumb it down for me because I don't think the same way you do. And so they told me, okay, say you have 10 different um, parents, okay? We'll say 5 male, 5 female. It doesn't matter. 5 different parents, or 10 different parents, okay? And say all these parents took their DNA and they put it into one child. Now, everybody's going to claim that child and they're going to say, okay, say, we'll put it in human terms. I want my child to be a doctor. I want my child to be a lawyer. I want my child to do this. I want my child to do that. And so everybody's got their own little agenda with us of what exactly their expectations are of us. And that's the whole thing. We're a combination of a lot of different DNAs that make us human. We're human because we're a combination of so many different DNAs. And I want to leave it with you on that. And hopefully next time we'll get into something more. Well, I find this interesting, but we'll talk about something interesting again. All right. And I said, like and subscribe, please. Help me out. Pass this on. Share it to others. All right. You have a good night.